I've pretty much got this wing all ready to paint. I've been working on it 3 or 4 days now, scrubbing all the polybrush and polytack off of it. A little bit of corrosion buffed up. The real corrosion really wasn't bad. In fact, I didn't find any real corrosion on it, just surface stuff on the rear spar. The thing that took me the longest was to get all the masking tape off of it. Well, anyway, it's just about ready to paint. I've got one more thing that I've got to do on here. These leading edge skins, from the foreskin to the inboard leading edge skin, all have tabs on them, so they fold over and come over the backside of these spars and are screwed into the spars. Steel screws going into aluminum, so there's some galling and stuff as they cut the threads into the holes that they go into. These were all fairly new screws, and most of them came out okay, but if you get one that's gone in there cockeyed or galled a little bit or something like that, as soon as that Phillips head bit spins in the screw, it's done. It won't come out. You can't get it to come out anymore. I got a couple of them out by just tapping on them lightly with a hammer and gently twisting on them until I got them to come out. But pretty much once that Phillips head bit is spun in there, they're messed up. So what I do on them is take the Dremel tool with a cutoff tool in it, and I'll cut a slot in the head, and then some of them I could get out with a standard screwdriver, but some of them just wouldn't come out no matter what I did, so I had to grind them off, grind the heads of them off. So there's several screws that got stuck in this spar. Well, here's one of them here, there's another one over here on this same bay, and then there's a couple of them down here in this bottom. Well, anyway, this is one of them right here. Well, I don't want to leave those in there if I can help it. Steel inside aluminum just doesn't age very well. On the other wing, when I did it, I had several of them like that, and I just took a drill with a small bit in it, I think a 3/32 bit in it, and started trying to drill those out, and they all eventually just came out on their own. They started spinning and threaded their way all the way through the flange on the spar there, and all came out. But I don't have very good luck centering a drill bit and making it drive straight and stuff, so I'm going to make myself a pilot to pilot the drill bits in there, see if I can make something anyway, and help me drill a straighter hole. So now, to make myself a bushing or something easier or maybe more accurate to drill those screws out with, this is what I've got in mind here to make a bushing out of. I've got a piece of 1/2-inch stock that I put in there in the chuck, faced it off. I used a spotting drill to spot the end of it there so I could get a good clean start with a drill bit. Drill a hole through this piece in there quite a ways. Then what I'm going to do, I'll probably face it off, face what my spotting drill put in there, the hole that it put in there, because it's a little big. But then I'm going to drill a hole approximately the diameter of the screws that are in there. Now they only stick out of that flange on that wing spar just a little bit. I can just barely get a hold of them with a real small pair of dikes, wire cutters, but not enough to really get a hold of them with anything. So it doesn't have to go in there very far, but I want to make sure and get a hole just about the size of those screws, the outside diameter of the screws. I've got a 3/32 drill bit in here right now. That is the size of the pilot hole that they want you to drill in the wing spars there for those screws to go into. Actually, what they say in the plans is 0.098, and you figure that out, and it's about a 3/32 drill bit. Probably should be faster, I suppose, for that small a diameter hole. Alright, that's given me a good inch, which is more than what I need. I'm going to face that off now to face off that pilot drill hole. figure out what size those outside diameter those screws are, and I'll drill that hole out just a little bit so that it'll fit over those stubs of those screws. Okay, I measured one of those screws and it says it's a 7/64. I don't have a drill bit that size, but a number 35 is just one size, part size bigger than a 7/64. So I've got a number 35 drill bit in here. I'm just going to peck that hole just a little bit, just enough to get in there and to kind of slide over those. We'll see how that works. Alright, dumb mistake on my part. I put the two drill bits down together and I picked up the wrong one and put it back in the chuck. So I had the number 31 drill bit in there, which is what I drilled the hole with. No wonder it went through there so fine. Alright, that should be all I need. Let me check that out now. So it's amazing what happens when you put the right tool in. I put the wrong drill bit back in there. I put the little drill bit back in there. Once I put the right size one back in there and drill that hole, now it fits perfectly over that broken screw that I wanted it to, just like it was supposed to. I figured out the difference when I went to put the bit back into the drill index and it slid all the way down to the bottom and flopped around in it. I don't need very much of this. I just want, or just enough of this that my drill bit will go in there and go in straight and line up onto the screws as I take them off. So I need enough of it to hold on to with my fingers, so maybe I put a little bit more on there. But I don't want so much that the drill doesn't stick out the end of it, the bit doesn't stick out the end of it. Oh, let's cut this son of a gun off of there. Now we'll find out whether that thing works or not. I'll take the file, smooth that end out just a little bit. That chamfer tool, bevel tool there, still left a rough edge on it. I guess now we get to try it out. Alright, that thing's working just the way I envisioned it. It fits over the top of the stubs of those screws that were ground off, and then the drill bit fits down through this little hole here, pilot hole here, and I start drilling out the screws. Once you get so far into the screws to drill those out, it starts catching, the bit starts catching in the metal of the screw, then the screw will spin its way through and come out the back side of this flange right here, so it comes out. You don't have to drill it all the way out, it just spins out once you get it moving. So that's exactly what I wanted. That little button just fits right over the screw, and then the holes lined up to center the bit on it. Well, that I'm happy with that. That's better than I could do freehand on those. I got a few more of those to do and get those all done, and then this wing will be ready to be painted. Well, anyway, this thing's working out pretty good, this little bushing. I've got one over there on that leading edge. Let's go over here. On that front spar, and it's got a diagonal brace right there in the way. I can't get the drill on it, so I'm going to have to get that diagonal brace, take it off of there, and then once I get it off there, then I can get the bushing on there and get the drill bit on there. I can get the bushing on there now, but I can't get the drill bit lined up in there right with the drill motor attached to it. So anyway, this thing is working pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. I get all of those busted off or cut off screws out of that spar, and I'll be a happy camper. Been working on this skeleton of this wing now for about a week, and I finally got it all pretty much cleaned up. All of the old poly tack and poly brush off of it, all the masking tape. The masking tape was the worst of everything. Got the finished color paint, the yellow paint that was on, protruding on the parts that were sticking up through, like the false spar attach points and the flap and aileron hinges and the spar attach points and things like that. I had a little bit of crud down here on this end of this spar where the landing light's attached to it. I've got that pretty well cleaned up. I might clean just a little bit of that. There's just a little bit of a burr on that hole where that bracket fits on there that holds the wingtip bow on right there onto the end of that spar. Take that burr off of there a little bit. Anyway, I got all of that cleaned up. I decided to go ahead and take these leading edge skins off because, well, one of them had a dent in it that I wanted to repair or to get knocked out of it as much as possible. Well, two of them had dents in them that I wanted to take out and get repaired. And then I got to looking at them, and here on the face of them where some of this tape and stuff was on there and some of that glue was stuck on here and stuff, there's a little bit of corrosion on it. There was dirt on the inside of it. Now, these weren't near as dirty as the leading edge skins or the false spars, for that matter, of the left wing were. These were pretty clean compared to what the left wing was. But there was a little bit of dirt in there, and there's little teeny spots in here where there's just corrosion starting here. Then there was a lot of fretting on here where these skins overlapped the ribs and where the skins overlapped each other. And these things are just cut atrociously. Like this is pretty thin skin here, and this edge is, I mean, I could have done a better job cutting it with a chainsaw. It's just terrible. I don't know whether these were cut out with a CNC machine, a CNC router. I know I've seen the shop down there at Cub Crafters, and they have a CNC machine to cut out a lot of parts. Another outfit that I went to one time had a CNC machine for cutting out parts. These almost look like they were cut out with a CNC machine, but nobody ever took the time to deburr these edges on here. They've got sharp corners on them. They got tabs hanging out on the corners where the cuts weren't complete. Cut out here, and this is a rough edge. Now, you put anti-chafe tape over that and stuff, and it's fine, but it's still where this edge overlaps the other one. It's just rough right here, and it was sawn into the other skin. Now, the other wing was the same way. I took off all the leading edge skins, and I took off all the false spar skins too and cleaned those all up. But those were a lot worse shape than these are. But they still had the same thing with the sharp edges on them and the rough edges and stuff like that. So I'm just going ahead. I probably didn't have to do this, or maybe I shouldn't have. I don't know, but I did. Take these off, and I'll clean them up, deburr these edges, round over these corners a little bit, take these sharp spots out of them and stuff, and make them a little bit nicer. Now, the wing is going to be fine the way it is. It's ready for paint. I've got some white DP primer, LFDP or whatever it is. So I'm going to paint the whole wing with that, the ribs and the spars and everything. The backs of the false spars where the fabric gets glued on, I'll paint it with some of the polyfiber MEK-proof paint. And the same with these leading edge skins. Inside I'll paint with the DP primer, and then the outside I'll paint with the MEK-proof primer. But anyway, that's what I'm doing right now. I'll get these trued up, cleaned up, edged up, all the deburred and everything. And then I'm going to start scrubbing them down. Like this is the inboard flap fault spar. And we've got spots here, a little bit of corrosion starting on it, little patches here and there. It's not through the skin, it's just there. Especially right around here where this inboard flap hinge attaches and around here. And then in the inside of it, you can see little spots in here where there's just starts of corrosion. It's not bad, but once I get it cleaned up and painted, it'll be perfect, or near enough perfect that it won't matter to anybody but me. So I just go along these edges on this. It's too thin to try to file. I just use I don't know what this is, a double cut. I don't know whether that's a double cut or single cut. Yeah, it's a double cut bastard file, but it's a real fine file, a real small file. It's only a 6-inch file or so, and it's half round, so I can get into some of the places where it's round here, to like here. I want to deburr that, but I just use a soft draw file technique on this, and that keeps a nice smooth cut that way, and that cleans that edge up. Well, it's not so rough. That edge was pretty rough right there. Now it's almost smooth now, just doing that. So I've already got 3 of the leading edges done. I've got the foreskin done. I've got the inboard leading edge skin done, and the 3rd leading edge skin done. This is the 2nd leading edge skin. Like I said, that's if we're counting from the inboard edge out, and that's the way they're overlapped. The outboard tip goes on first, and then the next one, and the foreskin, and the 3rd skin, and then the 2nd skin, and so on. All right, just keep working on that, get all those done, and then we'll go to something else. Moving on to the next stage now. I've got these leading edge skins all deburred, trimmed up. Well, now I'll wash them down with this Alumiprep acid etch and make sure the surfaces are clean, get all any corrosion or anything like that off of them. This cleans them up pure. I don't need to do this on the spars and the ribs and stuff like I did with the other wing, because they're actually in pretty good shape. There's actually no corrosion on those. There's a little bit of dusting on that rear spar, but that cleaned up pretty good with just the soap and water and Scotch-Brite, and then of course going over it with the MEK to get the glue and stuff off of it. That cleaned up pretty good. But the ones that do have a little bit of corrosion on them are that inboard leading edge skin and that inboard flap fault spar. So this is the 2nd one out. This one's one I found a kink in it here. For some reason it had a spot on it that got banged pretty good. I've knocked it out, flattened it out the best I could with my sheet metal tools. That's taken care of. So once I get it all cleaned up and primed, then I'll take a little bit of body putty and kind of fill that in and smooth that all out. It won't show through the fabric, but we'll make sure that it doesn't show through the fabric and make it nice and pretty, but we'll get a good foundation under it first. So like I said, this one is pretty much clean. A little bit here on the one side where it chafed a little bit on that next skin that it was overlapping, but mostly it's in pretty good shape. Well, there was some pretty good pitting in here in this edge right here where it overlapped that other skin. It abraded in there quite a bit, and it showed up as a black line along here. But when I put it in the Alumiprep and the acid etch, then as that acid gets in there and starts working on that, it really turns black then. And you keep scrubbing it and getting more in there until it comes out clean. A lot easier to do nowadays with these Scotch-Brite pads than what we used to do. You can't use steel wool on that, which is what we used to have. for polishing like that. You can't use that on aluminum because then you get little micro steel particles gets embedded into the aluminum, and then you got a real sore spot for potential for corrosion. So we used to use aluminum wool or bronze wool, and that stuff didn't cut near as good as these Scotch-Brite pads do. The Scotch-Brite pads wear out fairly quick when you're scrubbing on them, but they do a pretty good job. You got to make sure and get all of that acid off there. So I rinse that off in the shower, hot water, and you can tell when this is clean because that surface tension of the water is all over there. There's no spots or anything on it, and it just kind of comes off in sheets. Well, I've got 2 pieces done now. I've got that easiest piece to do, that little short piece, the number 2 skin. There's a little bracket that goes inside that flap false bar for where the flap hinge, inboard flap hinge attaches there. And I got that cleaned up and polished up bright. I'll go ahead and do the rest of these now. Some of them are going to clean up pretty fast, but some of them have got some scrubbing to do on them. But anyway, we'll get those done. And then once I get those done and dried out, then I've got some iodine solution now. And I just had my wife find me a couple of sponges so I can take a sponge and saturate with iodine solution and then just wipe into that clean aluminum on those skins. I got all those skins scrubbed down. Most of them weren't too bad. A couple of them that had some pitting in them from abrasion and stuff from fretting where the pieces lapped over each other. I got those cleaned out really good. Scrubbed them all down anyway with the acid etch. Washed them down in the hot shower, let them dry out, and then I wiped them down with some iodine solution. I got everything wiped down with iodine solution now except for that outboard aileron false bar. I've got to wait for it to dry out, finish drying before I wipe it down. Well, I think I'm going to go down to the cabin for a little while and maybe have a bite to eat or something and watch some TV with my wife. I'll probably come up here after she goes to bed and work on that again. I was going to go to town tomorrow and get some plastic to sheet this place in up here to make kind of a paint booth in here. But I think I'll find something else to do tomorrow because tomorrow's Monday, and on Tuesday we get 10% discount at the hardware store. So if I'm going to buy plastic and stuff to sheet up here, I might as well wait till I can get 10% off of it. Anyway, that's the next step on this stuff is to sheet this place in and start squirting some paint on it. But I guess tomorrow, if I'm not doing that, I don't really have anything else to do here on the wing. Everything is all done until we get paint put on it. So I guess tomorrow I'll crank up the air compressor and the sandblast machine and sandblast those parts and pieces I got down there, that outboard aileron hinge and the inboard flap hinge, and clean up a few other parts and stuff to get ready to put back on here. But once this is all painted, I can start to put it all back together again. All right, that's enough for now.